Hello there. My name is Jose F. Rodriguez. I am a builder of scale miniature furniture of museum quality. If you have seen my previous DVD devoted to the PREAC precision miniature saw, you will know that there is no finer saw that has ever been made, no more accurate saw that has ever been made than the PREAC tool. Unfortunately, the man who ran the company passed away several years ago, and this beautiful piece of precision machinery is no longer being made. I have been trying to find used ones, maybe sold in various auction sites, Craigslist, etc. But unfortunately, there's no way in the world that anyone would ever want to get rid of their PREAC saw. So I'm very fortunate to still own one. Now, I have been a member of a local miniature club where we have several dozen members, and we do projects every once in a while, every month or so. A lot of them are based in kit form. In this video, I'm going to cover the way that I go about to mass produce a very simple piece. In this case, it's this little bench right here. It's extremely simple, nothing like what I usually make, and I'll give you a few examples of that in a little bit. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and produce 20 of these kits. It's going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of wood to make it. This one, this prototype was made with 1/16 of an inch thick basswood. I'm going to use 1/16 for the top, but I'm going to substitute slightly thicker stock for the sides and the legs. I have this ready to be milled or cut. But before I do so, I wanted to give you a glimpse of some of the work that I have done. Little history about myself. I started back in 1972 when I was in the military at the time. When I arrived to the Washington, D.C. area, I immediately looked up the Washington's Dollhouse and Toy Museum, which is now unfortunately closed down. I took what I had built to the owner and director or curator of the museum. She's the famous Flora Gill Jacobs, who has written many books, has had an extensive collection of dollhouses, and made a small part-time career out of this. She basically hired me as her in-house miniaturist. I would make whatever I would make for her, she would take to shows, and usually they would all sell out. That went on until the early 80s. Soon after that, I was sent to Europe, and when I came back, I talked to a sales rep for the department that I worked for, and it so happened that he was also into making scale miniatures, very nice quality pieces of furniture, I might add. He had the connections to some of the biggest shows in the country, and so once he saw what I had, he offered to carry them to one of the shows. They sold out completely. Shortly after that, apparently some of the buyers were also dealers, and they started to offer me contracts for the shows. It's a strange situation, whereas you just don't walk into this type of community. You first have to be recognized, and then once you're recognized, they sort of open the doors for you. He also was fortunate enough to own one of these fine PREAC saws, and I quickly purchased one. Nothing that I had in the past could just even come close to what the blades that this saw uses, the types of cuts that it can produce. Nothing could even touch it. So therefore, I went ahead and spent close to $600 for this, and I haven't regretted it since. It's been now since, I believe I bought it in 85, I think it was, and the rest is history. So before I begin to duplicate this little bench, I'm going to go ahead and move the camera over to the other bench where I will show you some of my examples. Okay, and here you see some of the furniture that I have made. I'm hand holding this. I'll try to make it as steady as possible for you. I'll go ahead and take a couple of close-ups of some of the more interesting details of some of these pieces, just to give you an idea. I work from original drawings, and I get these out of some of the books that some of the museums publish, such as the New York Metropolitan Museum. And here are a pair of side chairs, lyre back. They're made out of mahogany. I cut my own miniature mahogany boards out of large or thicker blocks. I look for grain patterns that sort of simulate what it would look like if it had been shrunk down to 1/12 the size. That allows the realism of the piece to come through. Since I'm working from measured drawings, everything is thickness to the correct dimensions, and that by itself lends a lot of realism to the finished piece. Here are a couple of shaker style dining tables. You can tell that by the nice simple rectilinear design. This one's made out of walnut. This one's made out of walnut base with a veneer top, I believe is some sort of rosewood, and it is edged satinwood. And here is a little shaker dressing table. You can see possibly the dovetailed drawers. These are all done to scale thicknesses. All the components of the drawers are put together as it would have been put together had this been a full-scale piece. This is what is referred to as a southern cellaret. It is basically a wine cabinet. As you can see, it has the compartments for the bottles of wine. It is made out of mahogany, as the original would have been made. The brass scutcheons for the lock are made by a photo etching process. They are really made of real brass to the correct thickness. And here's another little piece, again featuring dovetail drawers, made out of a dark exotic wood. I believe it's from South America. I forget the name right now, but it does a nice job contrasting with the holly edging. By the way, the size of the drawer are birch. And this nice little piece would have been great for a solarium. As you can see, it has a tin water catcher tray, which is removable. It is an octagonal table with tapered legs, also made out of mahogany. As you can see, it has nice molded upper frame, and it's one of the more simpler pieces to make, actually. And here's a nice little Victorian style table, oval table, veneered on the top. The rest is mahogany, as the original would have been. You can see the legs have molded edges, also made out of mahogany. And then the central pedestal is turned on the lathe. Here's an example of a Chippendale claw and ball foot type leg. It's a satinwood and mahogany table. Here we have a mahogany sideboard in the Queen Anne style. It has real brass with real handles. for the drawer. Real hinges that actually operate. The interior and all the components are put together as the original was. Okay, so now that you have seen some of the examples that I have made, let's go ahead and jump back to the saw and continue with our job of creating 20 kits of that simple little bench. Okay, for those who have not seen my video dedicated to this saw, I'm going to give you a quick rundown. Basically, it is made out of steel. Got a 1/8 horsepower motor. It's a capacitor start, very reliable. This will last forever. You have a belt-driven pulley, which operates a trunnion, located underneath the saw itself, and there's an arbor that holds the blade. Now the secret of the accuracy of this saw, not only the construction, which is very well built, but the blades that it uses machining blades. It uses metal cutting blades, which are not ground the way most traditional saw blades are ground. Usually those other types of blades are ground first, the teeth are cut, and then the teeth are alternated left and right, left and right, left and right. That process cannot be controlled as precisely as it should be. So you have some teeth that actually protrude slightly more than others. And so during that cut, those teeth that are maybe over to the right or to the left a little bit more than others will cause pretty much deep gouges on the side of the cut. So if you're familiar with a full-size table saw, you know that after you cut or you rip a board, you have to join it to smooth out that cut, as the saw leaves really bad radial marks and grooves, and some cases with some cheaper blades, gouges. These things are machined perfectly flat on the outside. Now the way they get their clearance is that they are then hollow ground toward the center or the arbor hole. Therefore they do not vibrate at all. That is due to the fact that they're machined so precisely to begin with. They are usually used on milling machines during metalworking operations in order to cut slots. So the designer or maker of this saw has become very well aware of the accuracy of these blades, and he incorporated the slitting blade, as it is known, into the design of this saw. And that is the secret, ladies and gentlemen, of the precise cuts that this saw can make. In fact, as you will see, and I'll show you as I go along, if you were to sand a cut edge, you would actually degrade it. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. This is how I'm going to approach this. I'm going to build it so that the legs are actually vertical, not canted like that. I don't really like that. There's also a dado cut on the top, the underside of the top. And that's really necessary so that you can properly align the sides so that they are perfectly parallel along the edge. If you expect people to hand align it, you will get some crookedness to your results, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and also incorporate the dado cuts. For dados, I just simply use a blade that's wider, and I lower the blade so that it protrudes only half the thickness of the top, which in this case would be a 32nd of an inch, and you can make those dado cuts quite easily. Okay, so you could simply take a ruler, a measure, and set the fence to whatever distance, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the actual dimensions of the table itself. I'm going to take the table and I'm going to lay it against my blade, and I'm going to just bring the fence against it, and I'll just go ahead and tighten it. I have now set the fence to blade distance to the width of the actual prototype. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is the stock that I'm going to be ripping long strips that will match the width of my little bench top. I have determined that I can create 7 bench tops per strip. So I will need 3 such strips in order to give me the 20 that I require. Now the first thing I got to do is I got to square off the end of this piece of stock. And I'm going to use a little jig that I made. It's similar to a panel cutting jig that you would use on a full-size table saw. So let's go ahead and get this done. Okay, now we can go ahead and rip 3 strips of material. I'll cut the other 2 off camera and I'll be back. Okay, now we have 3 strips ripped to the correct width. I'm going to go ahead and remove the fence, and I'm going to place my jig back onto the saw, and I'm going to use this little spacer. It's nothing but a clip with a little piece of angled wood that I set up, and that's simply to set the length of my cut to match the length of the actual bench, and that will allow me to make repetitious cuts, as many as I need to. I can make 1 or I can make 1,000 of them. They will all be the same length. So let me go ahead and demonstrate the first few cuts, and then we'll go ahead and cut the rest of them off camera. Okay, so now all I have to do is bring my strip, this is the squared off edge, against my stop, and carefully hold it down. You must make sure that everything is held down. As you can see, this is a rather large surface and it could tip off, and if you're not careful you can have a little mishap. So let's go ahead and begin. Now you're going to want to hold this down and then just lightly support the end of the board. That's 1. Two, and we'll continue to make cuts until we have reached the number that we need, which in my case is 20. I'll probably end up doing 21 of them since I have enough material to do so. Why not make 21 tops? I just want to show you how identical they are in length. Alright, so I'll go ahead and off camera continue to make my cuts, and we'll be back when it's time to do the other components of the little bench. Okay, we have now 21 tops. I'm going to go ahead and set the fence for rip length or rip width that will match the legs. And the legs also match the sides as far as width goes. So we're going to compute how much I need per table, and then I will compute how many strips of that particular width I need to rip. Now remember, they're going to be made out of a thicker material, a 3/32 thick material, which I have right here. So we'll proceed to square off the end as we did earlier. And I'll take off the minimum amount. And now I'll proceed to make my rip cuts. Once I get the first one done, I will go ahead and compute how much I need, how many strips I need of each. Okay, I have gone ahead and ripped sufficient stock for the two sides of the bench. So, and remember that they also are the same width as the actual little legs. So I will go ahead, and I have already measured the length that I require. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have to cut 42 of these. Again, this is just the same procedure I did earlier. I'm not going to bore you. In fact, I could actually stack two of them at a time and save a little bit of time. But for the time being, I'll go ahead and just do single layers. As you can see, this is a really good way to cut multiples. If you were doing a project that requires many pieces of the same length, this is the way to do it. You are assured complete accuracy. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and cut the angle. I'm going to use a 45-degree gauge that I have made. This is basically a mitering gauge. I have my stop situated right here so that I can then repeat my cuts. And I'll just go ahead and do one and give you an idea of how this works. Okay, now once I have one done, I simply flip it over and proceed. And there you go. Okay, I went ahead and finished cutting all of the side members, this right here, and cut the angles. Now I'm going to set up to cut the dados. And here's an example of a top that I'm going to use as a gauge. Now the blade is only 1/16 of an inch wide. I really need a 3/32 of an inch wide dado cut. So I'm going to have to do it in several passes. Now what I have done, I have made this gauge, and I'm going to go ahead and use it to set my fence to blade distance. So what I'm going to do at first is, see, there's enough play in that groove, which means I'm going to have to do the dado cut in 2 passes. One pass will remove 16th inch, then I will slide over 1/32 of an inch and take a second pass after I have done all of the 16th inch with passes first. So let's go ahead and set this up. I'm just going to basically just bring it over until it touches. Now tighten it up. Now another point is that I'm going to incorporate a dado also, a vertical dado such as this, and this will allow the legs, let's just make believe this is a leg, this will allow the legs to align properly. In other words, they'll be at right angles to all of the edges. There will be no crookedness, and so the people who will be assembling these little benches will not have to rely on squares or triangles or any kind of aligning device. They'll just be able to slide things together and then glue them. So let's just go ahead and begin to do the dados. I'll make one pass and I'll show you what I have. Remember, these are the tops. These are 1/16 of an inch thick. So there's a 1/16 of an inch dado cut. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite side. And I will continue making these cuts until I have all 21 pieces done. Well, one thing that I want to bring up is that of course I could have done these dados when I had the pre-cut strips, in other words the full-length strips. I could have done it either way. I simply forgot to do it. Normally I would do the dado cuts when I have the strip material before I cross-cut it, and that way it's all done at the end. But either way it's fine. Now I'm taking off a little bit less than half the thickness of the material. So this dado is about a 1/64 of an inch deep. Alright, I have finished all 21 pieces. Now, had the sides been 1/16 of an inch thick, then I would be all done. Basically, they will fit. Very, very, very tight fit, which is great. Now, I have chosen to make the sides 3/32 of an inch. So I will just simply have to move the fence in this direction at 32 of an inch. And I've already prepared this gauge because I've already done that behind the scenes. So as you can see, I have this amount of play. I'm going to move it over to take up the leftover space. Now I'm just going to go ahead and make 2 passes. And the effect of that will be to widen the dado cut to the proper. Now I'll get a sample of one of these sides, and it's a perfect fit. Okay, so now we can proceed to do all of the sides. Alright, and that's it. All of the tops have been dadoed to the proper width. Now we'll go ahead and just do a double check. Make sure that everything fits fine. And they do. Now we're going to go ahead and cut the vertical dados, or the cross dados. And those are going to allow the legs to fit in. Now I have not cut the legs yet, so we'll be doing that next. Okay, now we're going to start cutting the cross dados on each one of the sides. And basically what I have done is I have measured from here to the right side of the blade, and it is 1/16 of an inch. In scale, that would be 3/4 of an inch away. So we'll make one pass. And you can see how that appears. You can see how that looks. The idea being that we're going to slide the legs through that. Now the legs are also going to be 3/32 of an inch, so we'll have to do the same procedure we did earlier and widen the dado to 3/32 of an inch. Now we're going to go ahead and do the opposite side. And that is how you do that. Now we just have to repeat those cuts. In this case, over 40 times. So we'll be back when I'm done. And then we'll go ahead and readjust the fence and recut the dado to widen it to the proper width. Okay, I've gone ahead and adjusted the fence. I made my test second pass, and it is a perfect fit. So I'll go ahead and widen the dado on all of the sides. Let's go ahead and test it. Perfect. Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish the 40 plus sides in the same manner as I just showed you, and we'll be ready to cut the legs to length. Okay, I have gone ahead and finished. I have inserted two sides, and I have my stock from which I'm going to cut the legs from, and I've inserted it into the dados. Everything is square and everything fits perfectly. So I'll go ahead, I have made a mark. That's the length of the legs. I'm going to set up my little panel cutter, and I'm going to cut 40 of these little legs. I made a mistake on one of the on the 21st, what would have been the 21st bench, so I've scrapped it. I'm down to 20. So I'll go ahead and cut 40 or 42 of these. That'll give me enough for any possible mishaps. And here's my panel cutter. I have set it to the length that I need, as you can see. So now it's a matter of just making continuous cuts until I have the proper amount of legs. I hope that you can tell how easily you can set up to create multiple cuts to produce perfectly identical pieces or members of a project. I'm not doing this as a commercial venture. I'm doing this merely for my club so that we can have identical kits for people to use. when you utilize this type of mass production techniques, you pretty much ensure that every piece will fit. Alright, I'll come back when I'm done with all these. Let me clean that little bit off of there. Perfect. Okay, I have all of the components for the little bench right here. And here I have one that I just put together without glue. It fits so nicely that it actually can be fitted without it falling apart. And here is a closer look at it. Now what I have to do now is go over every single piece and clean off the fuzz that the blade leaves. Even though these blades are truly excellent blades, they tend to leave a little bit of fuzz on soft woods such as basswood. Basswood is a very fuzzy wood, but one that is very popular among model builders. So that's basically it, folks. I have made 20 little benches, all of them identical. They'll be put in a kit, and we'll be building these this coming Saturday. Until the next time, bye-bye.